Hi everyone, this is Jim Tolles, and the topic for this video is Be Nobody. One of the beautiful things about the spiritual path is you don't have to be anybody. And being yourself actually isn't an identity. I think there's a big confusion people have with the spiritual path and who they are, that they get locked into some new idea of who they are. And so if you're fortunate enough to move past that initial phase where you thought you were a certain person, you had certain traits and all that sort of stuff, you start to see how optional a lot of that is. I mean, that's what awakening does for a lot of us. When you hit that big bang, you suddenly realize that how you interact in a lot of your life is really pretty much made up. That so many of the things and traits that we thought were who we are just are fabrications, and you can change them at any given time. Now, there certainly is that quality, that essence of us that is just kind of part of who we are in this life. But this is a different thing than the way the ego thinks of itself and the way we defend, this is how I am, this is how it has to be. It's like I'm a very organized person, always has to be organized, yada yada yada, right? This is coming from the ego. But there may be that natural aspect to you in this life that likes to organize, but it's much softer in the space of awareness, and it's still pretty optional. The more you let go of these attachments to how life should be, then it's like, well, it's organized or it's not organized. Right? Life is always flowing in and out of organization and disorganization, at least according to the mind, the way we evaluate these things. And so it's just so much easier to be nobody. And of course, I think some of the other concerns people have is like, as they let go of this somebody they've been trying to be their whole life, that they're going to find out they're a terrible person, or they're just going to be completely out of control, and that's not the case. A lot of times what happens is there's a transitory phase where all this shadow comes up, and the shadow is the stuff that you haven't been admitting to yourself, that you haven't been able to deal with, for one reason or another. And so looking at the shadow as being kind of the next layer down, a lot of people assume that this is who they really are, and that they have to hold on, otherwise they're just going to become this awful, terrible person, or this emotional wreck, this victim. But this is something else that is also just fabricated and made up. And one of the big things a lot of us have to learn about ourselves and take responsibility for is whatever the pain is we're carrying inside, we're committed to it in some way if we're carrying it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be here. Whatever, how horrible a past event was, a past life thing, or I call them concurrent lives because there's no time. But whatever it was, it's already gone. It's like right now, I mean, if you're listening to this video, you're here in this video. You're just listening. You're here in this present moment. Nothing is really going on. All the ideas in the past and the future, that's just your mind talking and trying to create a certain life around somebody and the somebody that you think you are, and create a certain life that reinforces and protects this somebody. But when you're nobody, all these things don't matter. Sure, you'll get hungry and say, I'm gonna go get some food. Sure, you'll see a need to have money for certain things, but you won't go past that. You won't get lost in it. You won't be scared about it all the time. Nobody's not concerned. Somebody needs to evaluate themselves by what they have. Somebody needs to prepare for the future in a certain way, but it's not in a way that actually is conscious. It's in a way that's very unconscious, because there's always this fear that somehow they're not going to have enough. In the space of being nobody, you just simply do what is necessary. And it just arises. It's not a mindless place. It's not an abdication of responsibility in life. Rather, you can embrace responsibility, and you give yourself the flexibility to be different people at different times. To put on different masks, to be a different somebody, because you don't have to just be that one. So if at some points in your life it's appropriate for you, you're just quiet, and you stay in this quiet place. Maybe you stay in this quiet place for years, you're just not really being outwardly vocal, and then one day something shifts and you need to be more vocal, so now you're very vocal and gregarious. The external world that's always caught up on these things will be like, oh my gosh, you're talking all the time, you're doing all these things. But that's just what was called forth. That was what was needed in the moment. And as I said, it doesn't mean you want to have certain tendencies, some certain flavors of this lifetime that, simply more natural to you. That's fine, but it's not a big deal. It's not something to hold on to. Somebody, that ego part, is always holding on to stuff So don't hold on. The more you relax into the space and just be here now, even as you're listening to this video, just be here. You don't have to be anybody, right? You're just listening. And if you listen to the dialogue in your head that's going, well, I agree with this, I don't agree with this, or I should be doing this or that, bring awareness to that then. So there's this thing going on that's keeping up a running toll and tally of things that you are, things that you agree with, things that you don't agree with. Right? All this list that you need to have to define yourself against somebody else. But you don't actually have to define yourself against me. You don't have to believe anything I'm saying. You can simply be here in this moment. Enjoy being nobody. It's so easy. There's no effort to it. I mean, look at all the people who are struggling to be somebody. Look at all the ridiculous stuff people do to become famous, to earn millions of dollars. How exhausted they are, and how fleeting their happiness is. Don't get caught up in pictures and images, right? Pictures and images always distort, and Lord knows our pictures and images are being distorted. We can change things in how they look. There's another way where we don't look at the external world to find our happiness, to find out what happiness looks like. The happiness you want's inside, in this relaxed space. And so many awakenings arise simply because there's this amazing sense of letting go or surrender. You just say, whatever life is, I accept it. And sometimes life is horrendous, deeply painful. But we can be in a relaxed place, this place of being nobody. And in being nobody, if suddenly we do need to play the role of the hero, we can. If we suddenly need to play the role of being the one who is helped, we can do that. It all becomes fluid. Nobody can be anybody. And any of you can be nobody. So these are some thoughts for you to play with today. Don't play with them too much. They're just thoughts, just words. And just keep relaxing into the space and enjoy being as you are.